Hey folks, how's everybody doing today? It's me again, Shannon Fox here, Devoted Patriots 2 channel. And as everybody knows by now, Trump has been indicted on some more charges, 4 more charges, and it's all involving the J6, the contesting of the elections. In Jack Smith's mind, Jack Smith being the district attorney, or the prosecuting attorney, should I say, that is trying to get Trump. He is trying to get this Washington, D.C. case sewed up. He's got an Obama-appointed judge overseeing the case. Trump definitely will not get a fair shake in Washington, D.C., being it's about 90-something% Democrat stronghold. And so I don't think any Republican can get a fair trial over there. I actually heard Ron DeSantis say they would indict a ham sandwich in Washington, D.C. if it was a Republican ham sandwich. And I'm glad he spoke up and said that, because it's the absolute truth. There's no doubt about it. But he ought to be supporting Trump more. As a matter of fact, all these people that are running against Trump need to join together and work on fixing this election process and putting Trump back in place and working against the deep state and the Bidens and all this corruption that is taking over our country in the name of socialism and greed. Well, Mr. John Lauro, who is one of Trump's new attorneys, and he is one of those type guys that he don't mind arguing with you. And I got a video for you a little bit later, a clip for you a little bit later on in the video, and it's him on CNN, and he is going back and forth with this lady over there, and he is giving her the what for about free speech versus her opinion. He's a lawyer, and she's just a reporter with a whole bunch of gaslighting nonsense, and he set her straight while she continues to argue. But at any rate, let's get into this video here, but let me give you just a little bit of a backstory on it, because they're going to go down this road with Trump about the election. In theory, they should be able to have discovery and get all of this stuff out in the open as far as contesting the election with the electoral votes and why. Drop boxes, machines, rule changes in places like Pennsylvania where they did last minute no ID necessary rule changes. There was many things that were done in the levers of power to adjust the whole election process, including hiding the Hunter Biden laptop story, but that's a different topic altogether. But at any rate, there were so many things that worked against Trump in the election, and there's no way they can deny the fact that he had the free speech right to say, hey, look, I truly believe in my heart this is what happened.
Mr. Trump did was exactly constitutionally precise and in order. There was nothing illegal about that, and he was required to take steps as President of the United States to ensure that that election was held in a valid way. All of that now is being criminalized. The one thing I will say, though, in 2020, Mr. Trump's campaign had a few weeks to gear up and present evidence, and it was very difficult. We now have the ability in this case to issue our own subpoenas, and we will relitigate every single issue in the 2020 election in the context of this litigation. It gives President Trump an opportunity that he has never had before, which is to have subpoena power since January 6th in a way that can be exercised in federal court.
But what you're talking about, the states did that. Each individual state certified the elections. They were signed by the governors, many of them Republican governors, and many of them Republican secretaries of state that signed off and certified those election results before they came to Washington, D.C., and we had what was January 6th. So what you're talking about was done. It was certified.
No, I'm sorry, but you're missing what Professor Eastman's advice was. Professor Eastman said that the state legislatures had not opined and weighed in on the changes that had been done in those various states.
That's right.
And what they've really done is invited now a relitigation of 2020, but this time in a criminal court, which is unprecedented.
I love it.
No
I love
sitting
it.
president has
That needs
ever
to
been
happen.
criminally charged for his views, for taking a position. And by the way, is there any doubt there's two systems of justice in the United States? Was Hillary Clinton prosecuted for the Russian hoax? Were those individuals who said, don't worry about the Biden laptop because it's just Russian disinformation, are they being prosecuted?
No.
No. Only one person in America is being prosecuted for his political beliefs. And that should send a chill, a warning to every single American who one day wants to get up and say, this is what I believe in. I disagree with the Biden administration, but these are the beliefs I have. Because every person who does that now is subject to a potential criminal case.
Starting to like this guy, folks. He goes toe-to-toe with Miss CNN over here, who is doing her best to try to make Trump out to be the bad guy and tell this lawyer that Trump doesn't have a right to free speech. You believe that crap? Let's go ahead and jump into it, folks. This is a little bit long. Stick around, if you would, till the end. It gets a little heated.
Committee report, but our focus is on the fact that this is an attack on free speech and political advocacy. And there's nothing that's more protected under the First Amendment than political speech. So at the end, our defense is going to be focusing on the fact that what we have now is an administration that has criminalized the free speech and advocacy of a prior administration during the time that there is a political election going on. That's unprecedented. We've never seen that in the United States, in the history of the United States. So literally what we have is an attack and really an effort to not only criminalize but also censor free speech. Donald Trump had every right to advocate for his position.
Yep.
While he was president, he saw irregularities, he saw deficiencies in the election process. He raised those. He was being told under oath by people around the country that there were problems with the election. He also saw in real time that the rules were changing without the state legislatures weighing in. And ultimately, he had every right, in fact, a responsibility as a United States president to raise those issues. And now his advocacy is being criminalized.
Well, those are secretaries of state who were making those changes in those states because of the pandemic that was happening. You talk about free speech. Jack Smith noted Trump's right to free speech and to contest the election results. But what he says in this indictment is that when that did not work, the defendant, your client, pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results, and that is why he is being charged here, not because of anything related to free speech.
Yeah, but that's factually inaccurate because the ultimate request that Mr. Trump made to Vice President Pence was pause the vote counting, allow the states to weigh in ultimately and audit or recertify. And under Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, the actual responsibility for qualifying electors is in the state legislatures. Mr. Trump had the advice of counsel, Mr. Eastman, who was one of the most respected constitutional scholars in the United States, giving him advice and guidance. That's pure politics. You may disagree with it, and people have spirited arguments about the law all the time, and that's why lawyers are in business. But we've never had a situation where a spirited debate about the Constitution has become a criminal case. What's going to happen when there's a Republican administration? Is there going to be an effort to criminalize speech by Democrats? Is there going to be an effort to characterize something that a Democrat politician says that's not that doesn't meet some kind of truth standard at the Department of Justice, that's going to be the subject of a criminal indictment? We've now entered a constitutional abyss as a result of this indictment.
But John, I should note that you're saying that he was just asking him to send them back. No, I was just talking to the chief of staff who was with Pence that day. He said he was being asked to do something illegal that Pence did not have the right to do, to reject them. And you mentioned the attorneys there that you say, John Eastman, he's a co-conspirator in this indictment. I should note, in the indictment lists all of the people who told Trump that his claims about election fraud weren't true, including the vice president, senior Justice Department leaders, the Director of National Intelligence, CISA, which of course is in charge of making sure elections in the U.S. are secure, senior White House attorneys, campaign staffers, state legislators that you just mentioned there, and the courts.
Right. What was not true? That there were states where ballots were sent out without people asking for them, where there were changes in verification, where there were instances where ballots were not being supervised at drop-off places. The president was told, given advice, that under these circumstances, the state legislatures have the ultimate ability to qualify electors. He followed that advice. Now, you may disagree as to whether or not those things actually occurred or not. That's why we have political debate. We don't have criminal trials over that. We have the discussion like we're just having.
But it matters if those things actually occurred or not, John.
Not under the First Amendment.
But it matters if those things actually occurred because...
Not at all, because under the First Amendment...
It does matter if there was actually fraud.
No, the First Amendment allows...
But John, let me stop you there, because if he...
She's trying to tell the lawyer about the First Amendment because she knows best with her opinion. And that's all it is, folks. There's no doubt about it. She does not know what the heck she's talking about. She is trying to talk semantics. She's obviously never read any part of the Constitution. Actually, I would bet money on that at this point. But this guy is standing his ground. He's doing a good job, and he obviously sounds like a really smart lawyer. I'm glad Trump's got him on his team. And we're all going to have to figure out how this goes. They probably will convict Trump on this one, would be my guess, unless it gets thrown out some reason. But I doubt it with the judge they've got or the jury they've got. I think that they're going to, as illegal as this is, it's probably going to have to go to the Supreme Court to get fixed before this thing is squashed on this particular case alone. But as it is, they've got 40-something cases against Trump at the moment, if not more, and they're trying to give him like 570 years over everything, which is just a ridiculous statement alone. But they don't really care about putting him in prison for 570 years. They just want him to quit, and he's not going to quit. He's going to continue to fight for this country if he's got to do it behind bars, folks, while we vote him into office. And that's the truth of the matter. Let me go ahead and get back into this video. Hope everybody's still sticking around. A little bit of a long video clip here, but I like to hear them spar, especially when you got Clueless over here arguing with the seasoned lawyer.
He's saying that there was fraud. The First Amendment doesn't allow the President of the United States to go and claim there was fraud when he was told there was not fraud, and then try to subvert the election by overturning legitimate electors. I mean, it says it right here in the actual indictment.
Absolutely. The First Amendment protects all speech. If we're going to have a situation where the Department of Justice is going to fact check politicians and indict politicians for political speech and whether or not they're factually accurate, then this country will shut down politically, because it's a never-ending cycle of tit for tat. And that's the risk of injecting politics into the criminal justice system.
That's right.
So right now, people disagree with President Trump. What's going to happen 4 years from now if somebody disagrees with President Biden in terms of what he said during the election? That's why we don't criminalize political speech. Political speech under the First Amendment has an almost absolute protection. Nobody gets to judge whether it's true or not, except the American people. And we do that in an election. We do that in an election. We do that in the case of a president by...
There's nothing criminal about being a liar. Not to say Trump was a liar, but you can tell somebody something. It can be made up, it can be true, or it can be a lie. But as long as it doesn't cause harm, physical harm to someone, or causes someone to go commit physical harm, there is no criminality. It's called free speech. And that's all she wrote on that one. And the Constitution lays that out clear as a bell.
Impeachment, but we don't indict people for speech.
I gotta stop you there. But Trump is not being indicted for lying here. He is being indicted for using unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and trying to subvert the election results.
Well, what's the unlawful means? There was an effort to get alternate electors.
He was trying to overturn
which is a protocol
fake electors who were not legitimate.
That was used in 1960 by John.
Do you hear that word? Fake electors. I guess they used the word fake to try to make them sound like they weren't real, like they were imaginary or something. It's actually an alternate set of electors is the proper term for it, I believe. But they don't like using the word alternate because then it makes it sound like you actually had a choice to choose different electors. And they don't want you to think that at all. They want you to think it is illegal to contest, even at the state level, the electoral votes, even if something nefarious went on in the election in the state. You're basically saying you don't have a right to question anything from the federal level at the state level. It's bullshit, folks. It will not fly in Congress.
And it was a protocol that was constitutionally accepted. So there's nothing wrong about that. In fact, in the indictment itself, it doesn't allege that there was anything wrong. And the final ask that Mr. Trump made to Vice President Pence was simply pause the voting. There's nothing inherently unconstitutional or illegal about that.
Right.
In fact, he had an opinion from a very well-known constitutional scholar that said that's fine, that's legal. Mr. Trump is not a lawyer. He's a businessman.
His own attorney general and official said that was not fine, that was certainly illegal, that he was asking.
I'm going to back that up just a little bit. You can tell just how annoyed this reporter is getting. She's getting like Karine Jean-Pierre with the blinky eyes.
Mr. Trump is not a lawyer. He's a businessman.
His own attorney general and official said that was not fine, that was certainly illegal, that he was asking. And they weren't just asking for a pause. He was asking to overturn the legitimate results. But John, let me ask you, because your running point on this, is Trump going to show up in person?
He was asked. Let
me ask you this: is Trump going to show up in person for his arraignment on Thursday?
That's up to the court. You know, the court makes those decisions. So we're prepared to follow whatever the court rules are.
John,
the judge issued a summons, and he will appear either virtually or in person.
Okay, so it's not clear if it's virtually or in person. But one thing to get back to there, he's not just asking for a pause. Your client.
No, you have to look at his last.
John, your
you have
client
to look
is on
at what he
tape.
said. You have to look at what he said at the Ellipse. Have you read the Ellipse
John,
speech?
you got to let me finish my point
No.
here.
When
Your client,
when
John,
you look
is
at the
on
Ellipse
tape
speech,
with
that's
the
exactly
former
what he said.
the Secretary of State of the state of Georgia. John, you got to let me finish my point here.
Go
I'm
ahead.
letting you finish your point.
Absolutely.
But your client is on tape with the Secretary of State from the state of Georgia, asking him to find him one more vote than he would need to win the state. That's not asking for a pause. He's asking for votes that he did not get in that election.
He was asking for the Secretary of State to identify votes that were not counted properly and factor that in. And by the way, that discussion took place with dozens of people on a phone call with lawyers involved, and no one was suggesting doing anything illegal. And no one during that call said, Mr. President, that's beyond the bounds. This is politics. This indictment is about pure politics. Yep. We engage in vigorous debate in this country about politics. What we don't do is criminalize political speech. This indictment is a game changer. It's the first time that we've taken political speech and said, we're going to criminalize it by the party that's in control against the party that's contesting the next election, where the two individuals involved are going to be running for office. That is an incredible set of circumstances.
John, if you believe that you have a good defense here for your client, do you believe that this trial should happen before the 2024 election?
It should not interfere with the election, but really what the indictment has done is identify 7 states
but should it happen before the election?
Where there are irregularities. I need to look at what so-called evidence is going to be presented. I could see this trial lasting 9 months or a year, but it's going to take. Mr. Trump is entitled to a defense. The government has had 3 years to investigate this, and now they want to rush this to trial in the middle of a political season. What does that tell you? We deserve as much time as any American citizen to defend on these issues as anyone else. And for the government to have 3 years to do it and then expect us to do it in 3 weeks or 4 weeks is just ridiculous. Every single person in the United States is entitled to due process, including the former president.
Okay, John.
She's done with him at this point. I thought that was pretty good. He got underneath her skin more than one time just by telling her the truth. She's claiming she knows the law and the Constitution better than him, but in reality, she just knows how she feels about the situation. That's not reporting. That's opinionating. Like, subscribe, and share to Devoted Patriots. I hope you enjoyed the 2 video clips. This guy is a winner. I'm glad to see Trump has got him on his team. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and I like to hear that. Over and out, folks.